The box that changed everything wasn't even supposed to be in my truck. I'd borrowed my neighbor's Ford F-150 for the day. My Civic wasn't going to cut for a third-floor move, and I'd been at it since 7 in the morning. My name is Liam Calloway. I'm 39 years old. I work in commercial insurance out of Columbus, Ohio, and until that Saturday in late October, I thought I'd done a pretty decent job of putting my divorce behind me. 3 years. That's how long it had been since Sandra and I signed the papers. 3 years of rebuilding. A new apartment. A promotion. Weekend runs along the Scioto River. Therapy even, for about 8 months until my therapist said something like, "You seem to have arrived somewhere steadier," and I actually believed her. I had arrived somewhere steadier, and then Sandra's younger sister called me. Her name is June. Not June as in Sandra's family, but June as in the person I'd known since she was 22 years old and used to crash on our couch after her college roommate drama. June, who used to eat my leftover pasta out of the fridge without asking and apologize by buying me a six-pack he was barely old enough to purchase. June, who cried at our wedding, and I mean actually cried, not the polite dabbing kind, but the kind where you have to step out into the hallway for a minute. She called me on a Thursday night in October and I almost didn't pick up. I saw her name on the screen and held the phone for probably 4 full seconds, which is a long time to stare at a name. "Hey," I said. "Hey." A pause. "Is this weird?" "Little bit," I said. She laughed and it was the same laugh. Some things don't change no matter how much time puts itself between you and a version of your life you used to live. She explained the situation quickly, the way people do when they've rehearsed it. She'd been renting a place in the short north for 2 years. Nice neighborhood, overpriced, the kind of place you live in your late 20s when you're trying to feel like you've made it. But her lease was up, and the landlord had raised the rent again, and she'd found a more reasonable one-bedroom over in Grandview Heights, and needed to be out by November 1st. Her friends were either out of town or dealing with their own stuff. Her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, she corrected herself, had a truck that was a big door she'd closed. "It's not a big ask," I said. "It's a move. I can do a move." She went quiet for a second. "You sure?" "Because Sandra's not my concern," I said. "If you need help, June, I'm going to help you." What I didn't say was that something about her voice sounded tired in a way that had nothing to do with packing boxes. I'd heard that kind of tired before. I recognized it from the inside. We decided on Saturday. I borrowed the truck. I showed up at 8, and she buzzed me in with that same laugh, a little nervous, a little relieved. Her apartment was already half-packed. She was one of those people who packs in phases, some things carefully wrapped in paper, others just sort of dropped into boxes with no real system. The kitchen was organized. The living room looked like a small disaster. "You want coffee before we start?" she asked. "I want to be done by noon," I said. She handed me a coffee anyway. We worked well together, which surprised me and also didn't. June has always been efficient when she puts her mind to something. She'd labeled most of the boxes with a black Sharpie, and she knew which ones were heavy and which ones were mostly clothes and throw pillows. We fell into a rhythm. I'd carry, she'd direct, she'd carry, I'd stack. It was the kind of teamwork that doesn't need a lot of talking. Around 10:30 we were working through the back of her closet, pulling out boxes she'd shoved up on the high shelf. Most of them were light, off-season stuff, old shoes, books she hadn't touched in years. Then I pulled down one that was heavier than I expected and almost fumbled it. The lid shifted and a few things slid out onto the floor. I picked them up without really looking at first. A postcard, then another, then a folded letter. The postcard on top had a photograph of downtown Cleveland on the front, the terminal tower lit up at night, the lake visible in the background. On the back, handwriting I didn't recognize. The message was short, just a few lines, signed with a single initial. I put them back without reading them, set the box by the door, but something about it stayed with me the way small things sometimes do. Not the content, just the weight of it, the fact that they existed. We loaded the last of it by 11:15. June locked her old apartment, slid the key under the super's door, and stood in the hallway for a moment doing that thing people do when they're leaving a place, just standing there, taking one last look at nothing. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said. "Just yeah." We drove to Grandview in mostly comfortable silence. I put on a playlist and she didn't object to it. At one point, she pointed out a breakfast place on 5th and said she used to go there with her college friends. And I said I'd been there once for a work thing, and that was the extent of that conversation. Her new place was on the 2nd floor of a building with good natural light and hardwood floors that hadn't been refinished recently but weren't terrible. Smaller than the short north apartment, but cleaner in a way that was hard to describe. Like it had better bones. I like it, I said, setting a box down in the kitchen. I do too, she said. It's quieter. We unloaded the truck in a little over an hour. By 12:30, all her boxes were inside. Her couch was positioned against the living room wall, and her bed frame was leaning against the bedroom wall, waiting to be reassembled. She'd ordered pizza, half pepperoni, half veggie, and we sat on the floor of her living room eating it off paper plates because everything else was still in boxes. Thank you, she said. I mean it, Liam. You didn't have to do this, I wanted to. She looked at me for a second longer than she needed to. Can I ask you something? Sure, do you ever regret it? She asked. The divorce. I know, Sandra, I know how it happened. But do you ever think about the version where it didn't? I took a bite of pizza and thought about that honestly. Sometimes, I said. Less than I used to. You? Me what? Do you ever think about the version where it didn't happen? She pulled at a piece of crust and didn't answer right away. I think about a lot of versions, she said. That's the problem. I let that sit there. Outside, someone in the building was doing laundry. I could hear the faint drum of a dryer through the wall. Somewhere below us, a door closed. What was in that box, I asked. The heavy one from the closet shelf, with the postcards. June set her paper plate down. Just like that. Set it down like she needed both hands free even though she wasn't holding anything else. They're from my mom, she said. She traveled a lot before she got sick. She used to send postcards from wherever she was. Even if it was only Cleveland. I didn't know your mom traveled. Most people didn't, she said. She kept that part of herself pretty separate. She was different when she was somewhere else. Freer, I guess. She paused. I keep the postcards because sometimes I need to remember she had a life outside of being our mom. That she was a whole person, with places she wanted to go. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say that would have improved on what she'd just told me. We finished the pizza. I helped her put together the bed frame, which took longer than it should have because one of the Allen wrenches she had didn't quite fit, and we had to make do. She found the right size in a kitchen drawer, the kind of drawer that has 17 random things in it. And we finished in about 20 minutes. By the time I was ready to leave, it was close to 3 o'clock. She walked me to the door and leaned against the frame the way you do when you're not quite ready for something to end, but you don't know how to say that. This was good, she said. Yeah, I said. It was. Liam, she said my name like it was the beginning of a sentence, then stopped. What? She looked at the floor for a second. Then back up. Nothing. Drive safe. I drove back to return the truck to my neighbor. I stopped for gas on the way. I thought about the postcards. And I thought about what she'd said about her mother, that she was freer somewhere else. And I thought about the particular weight in June's voice when she said she thought about a lot of versions. I didn't call Sandra. That's important to know. I didn't owe Sandra a phone call, and I didn't make one. What I did do was sit in my car in my own parking lot for about 10 minutes after I got home, not doing anything. Just sitting. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I still had saved under Sandra's name, even though I'd been meaning to change it for 2 years. Liam, I heard you helped June move today. We need to talk. I read it twice, then I put my phone in my jacket pocket and went upstairs. She called the next morning. I was making coffee when my phone lit up on the counter, and for a moment I thought about just not answering. But I've learned that the things you don't answer have a way of following you. Sandra, I said, I can't believe you. Her voice was the controlled version of angry, the one she used when she'd already been rehearsing the conversation in her head. Good morning to you too. You went to her apartment. You spent the whole day with her. She needed help moving. I said I helped her move. That's the entirety of it. She's my sister, Liam. I'm aware it's not appropriate. I poured my coffee and set the pot down carefully. Sandra, you and I have been divorced for 3 years. You ended our marriage. You moved to Denver. You got engaged to someone else 6 months after our divorce was final. I helped your sister move boxes from one apartment to another. These things are not in the same category. You know it's more complicated than that. It really isn't, I said. Not from where I'm standing. There was a pause on her end. I could hear her breathing in that particular way she had when she was working out how to reframe something. June is fragile right now, she said. She just got out of a bad relationship. She doesn't need Sandra. I kept my voice level. June is 30 years old. She can decide who she does and doesn't spend time with. And what are your intentions exactly? The question landed somewhere between absurd and insulting. I thought about what I wanted to say for exactly 1 second. My intentions were to help someone I care about move a couch up a flight of stairs, I said. I don't have intentions beyond that. And honestly, even if I did, that's not a conversation I'd be having with you. She said my name again, lower this time. I hope you're well, Sandra, I said. I genuinely do. But this conversation is done. I hung up. My coffee was still hot. I stood at my kitchen counter and drank it and looked out the window at the parking lot below, where someone was warming up their car, the exhaust visible in the cold October air. I'd meant what I said to Sandra. I didn't have intentions beyond carrying her sister's couch. That was true. But I also knew that sitting in my car for 10 minutes the night before hadn't been about a couch. I didn't reach out to June that week. I thought about it, picked up my phone twice, put it back down. It wasn't avoidance, exactly. It was more like I was trying to let things settle before I added any weight to them. She texted me on Wednesday. Sandra called me. I stared at that for a moment. Then I typed back. I figured she would. She asked me what happened. What did you tell her? The truth, that you helped me move and we had pizza. How'd that go over? There was a pause then. About how you'd expect. I set my phone down. Picked it up again. Are you okay? Another pause, longer this time. I've been thinking about something and I'm trying to figure out if I should say it. You can say it. Not over text. I didn't sleep well that night. We met for coffee on Saturday at a place in the short north that she'd always liked, a small corner spot called Stouff's that had exposed brick and usually had a line out the door by 9. We got there early enough to get a table by the window. She ordered a latte. I ordered black coffee. We talked about nothing in particular for a few minutes, her new apartment, a work project I was wrapping up, whether she'd gotten her internet set up yet. She had. The furniture was still mostly in the wrong places, but she'd hang pictures once she decided where things were going. Then she wrapped both hands around her mug and looked at me. When you and Sandra were together, she said, I spent a lot of time at your house. I remember, I told myself it was because it was convenient, or because I liked you both, or because I didn't have anywhere better to be. She paused. But that wasn't the whole truth. I didn't say anything. I waited. I had feelings for you, she said. I'm not saying that to blow anything up or to make things weird. I'm saying it because I've been carrying it around for a long time and I think you deserve to know. She looked out the window for a second, then back. When you two got divorced, the first thing I felt, and I hated myself for this, was relief. Not for you, not for her, for me. Because it meant you were free of each other, and maybe the world made a little more sense. The coffee shop was busy around us. Someone was ordering at the counter. A kid was asking her dad about something in a loud voice. The espresso machine was running. All that ordinary noise around a conversation that was anything but. June, I said. I know, she said quickly. I know the timing is insane. I know Sandra is going to think I planned this somehow, which I didn't. I moved into a new apartment and I'm 30 years old, and I'm tired of being quiet about things that matter to me because they're inconvenient. I looked at her. At the way she was holding her mug like it was keeping her anchored. At the way she'd said that last sentence, not like a confession exactly, but like someone finally putting down something heavy. How long, I asked. She exhaled slowly. Since your first Thanksgiving. You made that sweet potato casserole and you didn't know you weren't supposed to put raisins in it and everyone hated it and you were so genuinely confused by that. I laughed before I could stop myself. In my family, raisins in sweet potatoes was normal. I know, she said, smiling. That's what you said. That's when I knew. We sat with that for a moment. I'm not going to tell you what to do with this, she said. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know because not saying it was starting to take up too much space. I put my coffee down. June, look at me, she did. I'm not going to pretend I don't know what you're talking about, I said. Because I've been doing that for 3 days and I'm not very good at it. Her expression shifted, not dramatically, just a small softening around the eyes. The postcards, I said. When they fell out of that box, I didn't read them, but I thought about them all the way home. And then I sat in my car for 8 minutes because I didn't want to go inside yet. And I've been doing the math since Saturday on what that means. What math? The kind where you ask yourself why a person you haven't seen in 2 years can make you not want to go inside your own apartment. She looked down at her mug, a small smile at the corners of her mouth. Sandra called me, I said. She asked about my intentions. I told her I didn't have any. I heard. That was true when I said it. I said, I'm less certain now. She looked up. I'm not rushing anything, I said. I'm not asking anything of you either. But I think we're both sitting here in this coffee shop because we don't entirely want to pretend we don't know what's happening. No, she said softly. We don't outside. A couple walked by on the sidewalk, the woman pulling her coat tighter against the October wind. The light was that particular gray gold of late fall in Ohio, the kind that makes everything look a little more significant than it probably is, or maybe exactly as significant as it is. In the weeks that followed, things moved carefully. That was the only word for it. We texted. We talked on the phone a few times, longer calls than either of us planned. She told me about her job, about the nonprofit she worked for and the grant deadline that was giving her insomnia. I told her about a complicated claim I was working through, about a client who'd had a warehouse fire in Cincinnati, and the way those situations had 100 moving parts that had to be held simultaneously. We weren't performing ordinariness. It was just ordinary, which is its own kind of remarkable. Sandra found out we were in contact. I don't know how, exactly. June didn't tell her, and I certainly didn't, but Sandra has always had a particular radar for things she doesn't want to be happening. She texted June a long message that June read to me over the phone one night, her voice somewhere between exhausted and incredulous. It was a lot of words about loyalty and betrayal, and the idea that blood should count for something. There was a line about how June had always been this way, taking things that didn't belong to her. There was another line about how I was clearly not as over the marriage as I claimed to be. I listened to all of it. When June was done reading, there was a long pause. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I already responded," she said. "What did you say?" "I said that I love her and I'm not going to stop loving her, but that my life is not a supporting role in hers, and that I'd be here when she was ready to talk like person." I was quiet for a second. "What?" she said. "Nothing," I said. I stopped. "You're pretty remarkable, June." She laughed, a little embarrassed. "Don't, I mean it. I know you do," she said. "That's why I'm embarrassed. We went to dinner for the first time in mid-November. Nothing elaborate. A Thai place in Grandview that she'd been wanting to try, the kind of spot with good pad see-ew and no pretension about it. We sat across from each other at a small table and ordered too much food and talked until the restaurant got quiet around us. At one point she asked me what the hardest part of my marriage had been. I thought about it seriously, the way the question deserved. "Not knowing how to say what I needed," I said. "I was very good at keeping the peace, and very bad at telling the truth about what was wrong. Eventually keeping the peace costs more than it's worth." "Did Sandra know that?" "I think she knew something was off," I said. "I don't think she knew it was that specifically. I'm not sure I knew it until afterward." June nodded slowly. "That's a hard thing to figure out after the fact."
Expensive lesson, I said.
"Worth it eventually," she tilted her head slightly. "Worth it because of where you ended up. Or worth it because of what you learned." "Both," I said. "I think both." She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that changes the temperature of a room slightly. "I paid for dinner," she objected once, which I think she knew was going to be unsuccessful. Outside, the November air was sharp and the street was quiet. We stood on the sidewalk for a moment. "I'm glad you answered the phone," she said. "Thursday night," I said. "You said, is this weird?" "You said little bit." "Accurate assessment," I said. She laughed. Then she looked at me with that directness she had. The thing I'd always noticed about her even years ago, that she looked at things straight on rather than sideways. "What are we doing, Liam?" "I think we're figuring that out," I said. "Together. If that's okay with you." She looked at the street, then back at me. "That's okay with me." Sandra and I spoke one more time about it, about 2 months later. She called on a Sunday afternoon, and it was different from the earlier call, less controlled angry, more just tired. She asked if June and I were actually together. I told her yes, that we were taking things slowly, but yes. She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to feel about this," she said finally. "That's fair," I said. "You don't have to know yet. Does she make you happy?" It was such a direct question that it caught me off guard for a second. "Yeah," I said. "She does." Another long pause. "Okay," Sandra said. It wasn't enthusiastic, it wasn't a blessing. "But I hope you're happy too," I said. "I mean that. I know you do," she said. "And then, that was always one of your better qualities." We hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a moment. Then I called June. She picked up on the second ring. In the background I could hear the particular quiet of her new apartment. The dryer running somewhere below, the street sounds filtering through the window she always left, cracked open even in winter, because she said she needed to hear the city, or she felt like she was in a box. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I said. "What are you doing?" "Trying to hang a picture," she said. "I've been trying to hang this one picture for 3 weeks, and I still can't decide where it goes." "Which picture?" The one of the lake, she said. My mom took it somewhere in Wisconsin. She sent it as a postcard, and then I had it printed bigger. I thought about that box on the shelf post with the Cleveland skyline, the single initial signed at the bottom. I'll come help, I said. She laughed. It doesn't require 2 people to hang one picture. No, I said. But it's more fun with 2. There was a pause and I could hear the smile in it before she said anything. Okay, she said. Come help me hang the picture. I grabbed my keys off the counter and headed for the door. Outside, the December air was cold and clear, the kind of cold that makes everything feel a little more awake. I drove the 20 minutes to Grandview with the heat on and the radio low, and when I pulled up in front of her building, her light was on in the second-floor window. I sat in the car for a moment, not because I was uncertain, not because I needed to work anything out, just because sometimes you want to hold a moment still for a second before you walk into it. Then I got out of the car and went upstairs and knocked on her door.